During a news conference this morning, investigators released more details about the arrests for a deadly hit and run on Grapevine Lake Memorial Day weekend. Good evening, I'm Steve Eager.
I'm Heather Hayes. Law enforcement officials say hundreds of tips poured in leading to those arrests. They also confirmed both suspects were in the country illegally. Fox 4's Alex Boyer joins us now with more. Alex.
Hey guys, and at a news conference held here at the Grapevine Police Department, an ICE official confirms to us that the two suspects are Venezuelan nationalists who came into this country illegally. We also learned from an arrest warrant affidavit that Ring camera video sent in by a tipster, as well as facial recognition software and previous police reports, helped investigators identify and locate the suspects. Caroline Gonzalez and Michael Perozzo remain in jail Wednesday, charged in connection to the death of 18-year-old Ava Moore. Gonzalez allegedly hit 18-year-old Moore with a jet ski while the teen was kayaking on Grapevine Lake over Memorial Day weekend. Moore died from her injuries. At a news conference, Captain Joseph Quintero said state law requires that all watercraft stay at least 50 feet away from other vessels or the shoreline.
Obviously, if they had applied that law as they were supposed to, this incident wouldn't have happened.
Quintero says it's unclear if alcohol played a role in the incident. Investigators are also working to determine who owned the jet ski. Moore was a recent U.S. Air Force Academy preparatory school graduate. Immediately after her death at the lake, a witness shared a photo of the suspect with Texas game wardens who released it to the public. Witnesses told police the jet ski operator was able to elude bystanders and ran to an older model blue Toyota Corolla where a Hispanic male was yelling at her to hurry up and get into the car. The driver, later identified as Perozzo, admitted to police after his arrest that he hit other vehicles while fleeing from the lake and that eventually he pulled over and ran away with Gonzalez. Police say they received around 900 tips from the community and also used facial recognition software and police reports from other agencies to confirm the suspect identities. Included in the arrest warrant were these two photos of the suspects taken after the deadly encounter. Fox 4 was there on Tuesday when the duo was arrested Tuesday morning at a home in the Oak Cliff neighborhood of Dallas. Both are Venezuelan nationals who entered the country illegally.
It's my understanding both individuals crossed the southern border in 2023 or 2024. They were arrested at the time of entry, processed for a notice to appear, and then released on their own recognizance.
The arrest report states that Perozzo told authorities he helped Gonzalez escape to keep her from being captured for the deadly collision. It also states that both suspects were hiding in the house with a packed suitcase as they intended not to return for some time. A victim services advocate read a statement on behalf of the Moore family, who says they are grateful for the outpouring of support.
This is a difficult time for all involved, but also an opportunity for our beautiful girl to continue to impact our community. Out of this tragedy, God will make good, and that only can be accomplished through forgiveness.
So Gonzalez is charged with second-degree manslaughter. Meanwhile, Perozzo is charged with accident involving injury as well as hindering apprehension. Now they'll face those state charges before being turned over, I'm told, to immigration authorities. Back to you.
Right, and Alex, the governor actually posted a response to the arrest on X saying, "Welcome to Texas. Here is your death penalty."
Yeah, so that is interesting. It's not a capital murder case, right? So does that indicate that he's encouraging law enforcement to try to upgrade the charges, or is that even possible at this point? What are you hearing?
So it's interesting, you know, that post came out just before the news conference this morning. So reporters asked the captain who is there representing game wardens about that tweet, that post, I should say, and he said in response that he reiterated again that Gonzalez is charged with manslaughter at this point, and he did not offer any further comment. However, afterwards, I did speak with a criminal defense attorney not involved in this case about the governor's post, and here's what he had to say.
I think that's just political hyperbole, if you will. This was appropriately charged by the district attorney's office as manslaughter. It was conscious disregard of the health and safety of others. It does not rise to the level of something that would require the death penalty. That would take an intentional or knowing act, which doesn't exist here.
So with that being said, I can tell you that the acting director of the ICE field office here in Dallas said at the press conference today that he believes that no bond is appropriate in this case, given their legal status, and wants them to stay in jail as this plays out through the legal system. Back to you.
All right, Alex Boyer, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Clarice Tinsley. Investigators released more details on arrests connected to the deadly jet ski hit and run on Grapevine Lake Memorial Day weekend. Fox 4 News was there Tuesday morning when authorities arrested Gonzalez-Gonzalez as well as Mikel Perozzo, who police say helped Gonzalez flee the scene by car. ICE confirms both are Venezuelan nationals who entered the country illegally. Police say Gonzalez hit 18-year-old kayaker Ava Moore with the jet ski Sunday. Moore, a recent U.S. Air Force Academy prep school graduate, died from her injuries. Law enforcement says about 900 tips poured in. An arrest affidavit reveals that ring video sent in by a tipster as well as facial recognition software helped authorities identify and locate the two suspects at a home in the Oak Cliff neighborhood of Dallas yesterday.
It's my understanding both individuals crossed the southern border in 2023 or 2024. They were arrested at the time of entry, processed for a notice to appear, and then released on their own recognizance.
The arrest report states that Perozzo told authorities he helped Gonzalez escape to keep her from being captured for killing the victim. It also states that the two of them were found hiding in the house with a packed suitcase as they intended not to return for some time. Ava Moore's death has also become a political topic as an example of violent crimes committed by people who were in the United States illegally. Fox 4 Stephen Dial in the newsroom with that side of the story. Stephen.
Clarice, Governor Abbott posted on social media, "Welcome to Texas. Here's your death penalty." But the state charges in this case would not qualify for the death penalty. Still, this story is getting political attention because the suspects crossed the border illegally. They were detained and then released into this country. The death of 18-year-old Ava Moore has become the latest chapter in the political back and forth over illegal immigration. Moore, who was heading to the Air Force Academy, was killed by a reckless jet ski rider on Lake Grapevine. Police say the suspect, 21-year-old Dikerlin Alejandra Gonzalez-Gonzalez, left the scene with the help of an accomplice, Mikel Perozzo. Investigators say both are Venezuelan nationals who entered the country illegally. After the arrest, Governor Abbott took to social media saying, quote, "Welcome to Texas. Here's your death penalty."
This is designed to stir up the base, and the governor's language today, where he says, "Welcome to Texas, here's your death penalty," it is not consonant with what actually happened. There was a crime committed. It was very serious, but it's not death penalty eligible. And so why would he say that except to stir up the MAGA base?
Attorney General Ken Paxton also called attention to the case quickly. The headline of his news release was 2 illegal aliens arrested in connection to the death of a woman on Lake Grapevine. Among Republicans, this is an example of the shift from talking about the surge at the border to serious crimes committed by illegal immigrants. Illegal border crossings have sharply declined since President Trump took office.
What do you think the lasting power is on using, these narratives? Is this something that Republicans could carry into the midterms?
There are themes and stories and examples that both parties think play well for them. This is one that Republicans believe play well for them.
Lawmakers in the Texas legislature have pushed for bills that would create new laws addressing illegal immigrant crimes. One that is still up in the air is Senate Joint Resolution 1. If it clears the legislature and governor, there would be a public vote to create automatic no bond conditions for illegal immigrants accused of certain crimes. SMU political scientist Cal Jilson said we will continue to see 2 tracks: issues play out in court and in the court of public opinion.
In a court of law, you have to present arguments and evidence to sustain your criminal charge. In politics, you don't have to.
Going back to the governor's post about the death penalty, I talked to 2 lawyers today on the phone who told me that in their opinion, their legal opinion, there's no way this case can be upgraded to a death penalty case.
Stephen, thank you. It has been almost 7 months since a Rowlett teenage girl was shot in the back while fighting another girl. She survived. Rowlett police hope you can help them identify the shooter, a young man who was not in the scuffle. Fox 4's Sean Rabb has the shaky cell phone video police want you to see.
We are in Rowlett. This is Detective Brian McKenzie, and we want to talk about an event, a shooting that happened here Halloween, October 31st.
Yes, sir.
Tell me.
This past Halloween at about 9:19 p.m., we got called to a shooting here in the 9100 block of Waterview Parkway. Hundreds of families were in the area with their kids trick-or-treating when a fight broke up amongst a group of juvenile high school-aged girls.
Okay.
2 of the girls went to the ground fighting. While they were on the ground, an unknown male came up behind them and shot one of the females in the back. After the shooting, everyone took off.
Tell me about the guy who did the shooting.
Yes, sir. Witnesses described him as a dark-complected male with medium-length dreadlocks, wearing a red hoodie, black pants, and black shoes.
So, was he in the fight?
No, he was not involved.
2 girls fighting?
2 girls fighting. They're on the ground fighting, and he comes from behind, uninvolved, and shoots her almost point blank in the back.
When I look at the video, though, somebody will know him, especially a mama or daddy will know him from behind even, don't you think?
I believe so. There were so many people out here that night. We believe that more than enough people know who he is. We think there's more cell phone video that we have that might show who he is, or that other people might actually know who he is now. One witness has been able to give us a nickname of CJ, but at the time, that's all the information we have.
What do you need?
I need public's help. Whatever they can give us. Cell phone video, any information they can give us about CJ, anything that can help us bring this person to justice for our victim and her family.
How can folks get at you, Detective Brian McKenzie?
They can either call me at my desk, which is 972-412-6211, or they can email me, which is bmckenzie, BMCKENZIE @rowlett.com.
All right, Detective Brian McKenzie needs you to get at him, his phone number or his email. Help find this kid, maybe nicknamed CJ, but the kid in this red sweatshirt or hoodie, black jeans, dreads, who is he? Get at the detective. Help solve the shooting, Halloween night, trick-or-treat night here in the 9100 block of Waterview Parkway in Rowlett.
And you can also watch past trackdown stories and maybe help solve a crime. Go to the Fox 4 YouTube page, youtube.com/Fox 4 News.
A major setback for President Trump's agenda. A federal court has blocked him from using emergency powers to enforce sweeping tariffs.
Yeah, a panel of 3 judges, all appointed by different presidents, ruled that President Trump exceeded his authority during last month's Liberation Day when he announced a 10% tariff against most nations in order to get around the usual requirement of congressional approval. Mr. Trump justified the tariffs through the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The order blocks the 10% baseline tariff, but does leave in place other tariffs that the president has issued. Elon Musk is formally leaving his role as an advisor to President Trump. He was in charge of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. On his social media site X, Musk said the DOGE mission to reduce wasteful spending will only strengthen over time. The departure comes one day after Musk criticized the president's budget bill, but Musk was already set to leave tomorrow. He's been reducing his government work for several weeks, he says, to focus on his companies, including Tesla and SpaceX. The U.S. will soon revoke visas of some Chinese international students.
United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio says this includes students with connections to the Chinese Communist Party, those studying in critical fields as well. About 277,000 Chinese students attend U.S. universities in 2024. This move comes as the Trump administration continues to increase deportations as part of its immigration agenda. Rubio says the U.S. will also change its criteria on future visa applications from China and Hong Kong as well. The war between Ukraine and Russia appears to be escalating.
Yeah, Moscow is fighting President Trump on the diplomatic front while increasing attacks on Ukraine's defensive lines. Fox's Alex Hogan has the story.
As the weather gets warmer, the fighting in Ukraine is intensifying, with both sides now preparing for a new summer offensive. Russia has reportedly gathered some 50,000 troops near Ukraine's Sumy region in the northeast. They've been hitting that area hard over the past few days, along with significant air attacks on Ukrainian cities. President Trump says Russian President Vladimir Putin is, quote, playing with fire, a criticism rejected by Moscow.
Trump says a lot of things. We come to the conclusion that Trump hasn't got sufficient sufficient information about what's really going on.
The White House is now reportedly preparing a new round of sanctions on Russia, hoping to force Putin back to the bargaining table.
Do you still believe that Putin actually wants to end the war?
I can't tell you that, but I'll let you know in about 2 weeks.
But critics say it won't work because Russia has pivoted away from trade with the U.S.
The Russians don't seem to be taking President Trump very seriously. It's a sort of schizophrenic message coming out of them.
Meanwhile, Ukraine's European allies are increasing their support. All range restrictions on missiles supplied to the Ukrainian military have been lifted, and more of those missiles are on their way to Ukraine, making it easier to take the fight to the Russians.
When we talk about more long-range weapons for our soldiers, we are talking about how to reduce Russian offensive actions.
Russia's foreign minister says the next round of ceasefire talks will be announced soon. They're expected to take place in Turkey. In London, Alex Hogan, Fox News.